one of the questions is, I supported both levies for jail and DA. Is there another levy on the table?
Well, there's always a possibility of that, but we got 3 pretty good no's. And you can only get hit over the head that many times, and you finally give up on that. I have not had an overwhelming number of people coming to me and say, God, John, we gotta get something passed here so we can get the jail open. You know, leading is an interesting situation. You can only lead so much if no one wants to come behind you. And that's kind of the way I feel about taxes. Until I sense that there's a real uprising, a voice showing the need for taxes to pay for the services that we should have, I think it's foolhardy to go for another ballot measure. Now, I'm only one of 3. Commissioners, so it's not my choice.
Right.
That would be my answer were I asked.
Yeah. And I thank you too, John, for stepping in tonight and helping us out with
Pleasure
this.
to be here.
Yes. So one of the other questions kind of refers to some of the questions that the league had. And so I wanted to ask the league's questions first, and then, so some are concerned that the state government is committing large amounts of money to the Pacific Coast Intermodal Port Project, which has no guarantees of viability considering the volatility of international shipping, while ignoring immediate and ongoing financial crisis at Bay Area Hospital, which is an economic contributor to our community. So can you comment on that?
Yes, I can.
Great.
Why do you ask that?
You did it?
Oh, I haven't. It's a good question. You know, I think governments are largely responsible for generating, creating, funding infrastructure. We do that with highways. We did it indirectly with railroads. We gave them government land to build the railroads on and to sell, to pay for the railroads. So I think government pays for ports. So I don't have a problem with the government trying to develop another port on the West Coast. If you go to the East Coast, there's ports every other mile all up and down the East Coast. That's an exaggeration, but there are a lot of ports. On the West Coast, we have 3 ports that can handle terminals. Los Angeles, Long Beach, Oakland, and Seattle, Tacoma. Portland's shot itself in the foot. I don't think that they'll ever handle many containers. They handle a lot of other goods, cars, wheat, stuff like that, but I don't see that being a container port. I know it's a huge expense, but it's a benefit that will accrue to the entire nation. And so there's nothing wrong with being on the receiving end of an investment that's going to help a lot of people. But I don't know of very many populations, very many areas that are in need of family wage jobs to the extent that we are. You look at our statistics, our per family earnings are, I think, about 25 to 33% lower than the average county in the state. No wonder people say no to property tax increases. And poverty creates a lot of problems. Coos County, reading to grade level at the third grade is a big indicator of your child's chances of success. Was that they say up to the 3rd grade, you learn to read. After the 3rd grade, you read to learn. And if you don't know how to read, you're in a pile of trouble. And statistics will show that. Statistics will also show you that we have a country that's lagging behind in education. Worse yet, we're in a state that rates somewhere around 47th or 48th out of 50 states. And worst all of yet, we're about 34th or 35th worst in the state of Oregon when it comes to education, educating our K through 12 kids. We have a lot of great kids. A lot of them go off and go to good schools or are very competitive. But we have a lot that don't have a chance, won't have a chance. And I don't know all the pieces to it, but I know that if you can't read, you aren't going to go very far in this world. So that gets back to the need for jobs. We've already talked about the need for additional property taxes. You know, if Jordan Cove had come here, we wouldn't, as a nation, be exporting LNG from Houston, that's all the way through the Panama Canal, and all the way across the Pacific, at the fattest part of the earth, to get to Asia. Japan wouldn't still be having to buy natural gas from our biggest enemy, Russia. And we wouldn't, to the extent that we would help replace all the coal that's being built or being burned daily or weekly, I understand, in China, multiple coal-fired power plants are being built. That didn't have to happen. Yes, natural gas is a fossil fuel, but probably the biggest, easiest thing we could do to improve our atmosphere is to get rid of coal production, using perhaps natural gas as an interim step. Had we got that, it would very nearly have doubled the tax base of this county. That means that some government organizations might have been able to cut their taxes in half, because you had Jordan Cove paying for half of them. Or some that need more taxes would have them. So, and I refer to Jordan Cove because that's something we all know about. And I think that the container terminal could do the same thing for us. There are costs. Yes, there are. There are environmental costs. But there's human cost not having more family wage jobs here. We need them desperately.
Yeah, so that answers the question of how would the container point affect the county tax burden, you're saying. So I'll go on with some of the leaks questions. Is there any other audience questions? Okay. Discuss past future efforts to have the Coquel tribe manage the Coos Bay Wagon Road lands and share revenue with the county.
Their past efforts, I would hope at some time that could be looked at again. The president said that ordered his timber agencies to increase timber production. And he said, use the tribe to your advantage. And I'm hoping that will happen. And the reason I'm hoping is that we're not getting not getting very much harvest off the wagon road lands now. And what harvest we are getting is largely thinning harvest. And they're not thinning out little trees, they're thinning out big trees this big. So the remaining trees will grow to old growth status more quickly. Their goal is not production, their goal is, I guess, preservation. Create an old growth forest faster. And once it's old growth, it will never be harvested. So the tribes have a big advantage over an organization like a county in getting access to federal timber. One of the big timber managing departments is the Interior Department. They house the BLM, and they also house the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So it's a lot easier to transfer governmental assets within that department rather than giving it to a county. And they only give it to one county, and they have a bajillion other counties wanting the same thing. So I think that would leave the federal government in a bad spot. So I think the tribe can do things that we as a county could not do. They already have a forest management plan in place that's acceptable to the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And the tribe uses that to manage the lands they do have. And I understand they're very easy on the ground and are less environmentally damaging than industrial forest is. So I think if anyone would have a shot at putting together getting management of that land taken away from the BLM and given to some local organization, it would more likely be the tribe than the county. Even though we have forest management skills, we manage differently than they do. So, yeah, I hope that happens. It would be a way we would get some benefit out of the wagon road lands as both a county governmental entity and as a county that needs jobs.
Thank you. Okay, and on the same subject, it seems that the cutting of trees on county land has accelerated. For example, on Highway 101 on the way to Bandon. Is this at a sustainable rate? And do the trees need to be cut right up to the roadway?
Yes, it is. It is sustainable. We have 17,500 acres of timber. We only had 15 when I came. We bought 2,500 more. And it's important to us because it generates profits that help us a lot. We have 17,500 acres in our county forest. 2,500 acres of those acres cannot be harvested because they're next to a stream or next to a steep slope where you would not want to harvest. So that's 15,000 acres. We harvest on a 43-year cycle. So if you divide 43 years into 15,000 acres, you come out with a number that rounds to 350 acres. And so we sell cutting rights to 350 acres of timber a year. The buyer of those sales has 3 years in which to log. So you could log more heavily one year or less the next, but in the average, there will be 350 acres of county forest lands harvested. Where was I going with that? Oh, yeah, where we're harvesting. Previous boards of commissioners and previous county foresters chose not to harvest or to minimize the amount of harvest they did where it's openly visible to the public. And the most openly visible forest lands we have to the public in our county lie along Highway 101. And that was kind of what was left to harvest on a 40-year rotation. Well, why not let it grow? If you let it grow, and it gets to be 80, then it's old growth, and you'll never log it. Not only will you not log it, it won't log the trees near it. And slowly our forest would be unharvestable. So it's important that we maintain. Now you do see along the road, as I said, the people that buy these, it's largely, none of our logs could be exported. It all has to go locally. They may not harvest it the first year or the second year. They may wait until the third year to harvest it. And they may harvest something the third year that they hadn't harvested from another sale. And so it can look at times like there's a lot of harvest, but there's not. Right up to the road, we don't own right up to the road. State Highway owns between the edge of the road and our forest. And it's normally about 100 feet. I should know the number, I don't. We don't harvest that. They do harvest some of it. Sometimes they wait for it to be blown down. And that's bad. But they're getting a little better. We always notify them so that they can harvest it. But a lot of states don't allow any trees to grow next to their highway. A lot of states don't grow trees. But it would be safer if it were kept, if the sides, the highway were, because we've had people hit by trees that fall down. But they weren't our trees. Not along 101 at least.
So the highway department owns those trees?
Hold on, yeah.
Oh,
Oregon
okay.
Department of Transportation.
So they're the ones that cut those?
Yeah, the ones right on the edge.
Uh-huh,
We're back away.
okay. So, let me get back to our questions. What impact will the recently passed transportation bill have in Coos County?
As far as as far as each individual goes, it depends on what kind of a car you have, and what its mileage is, whether it runs on gasoline or on electricity. I have one that runs on electricity. It works pretty doggone well. I'm just amazed. Never thought I'd say this. But anyway, so there's not one answer I can give that will cover everyone here in the room. If we want good highways, we have to pay for them. Perhaps there's some waste. Should be any organization as big as ODOT that doesn't once in a while make a mistake. As far as the county itself goes, we were very fortunate. We get, I can't remember the formula, but this state keeps half of the gas tax money. They give 30% of the gas tax money to the counties and 20% to the cities. I think those are, I wouldn't put that in the paper, but I think those are the numbers. There's been a lot of pressure for the state to keep a bigger share of the gas tax dollars. But we were able to retain our 30%. So that part was good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members of the communities from Coos Bay's Empire District to Eugene have expressed concerns about the Pacific Coast Intermodal Port Project's impact on their neighborhoods, including noise, pollution, and traffic congestion. How can the county get involved in addressing citizens' concerns? And then the other question with this was, what infrastructure or other expenses will the county incur for the PCIP project?
Well, we expect a lot more traffic on Trans-Pacific Parkway, so that'll be an expense that will incur. There'll be more people, so we'll need more patrol. We'll need kind of more of everything that we do, a little bit, and that's pretty good. That'll mean more jobs. It'll mean more jobs, and that's going to be huge. That's, to me, our biggest problem. What can we do? There's a planning process that has to be gone through. You can promote or protest, whichever way you want to go. There'll be hearings. Stage demonstrations, or you can stage support letters to the editor. That's what we can do. You know, I live right above Highway 101, and where ships come and go. I can hear ships being, or bulldozers pushing ships, backing up, they're clang, 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 when you go in reverse. You know, it never bothers me. I think you kind of get used to noise. Or maybe sometimes a little noise is good. Yeah. Some of it sounds like money. we could use more of. I don't know. What else? Don't ask me to help.
So I have a question from the audience regarding this. You say jobs for Coos County, PCIP, what kind of jobs? People here will not be able to run the proposed terminal. Jobs for who? Terminals are becoming totally automated. Jobs, question mark. What jobs can Coos County get from this port project?
Well, there's going to be a lot of jobs, and I know it will be automated, and hopefully be the most automated modern port in the United States, because we're not competitive with ports in other countries. We're still in the ice age when it comes to port technology. There will be jobs for tugboat crews and pilots to see the ships in and out, and those are high-paying jobs. There will be longshore jobs. Those are high-paying jobs. There will be security jobs. Those pay fine. I don't know quite how much, but they're not cheap. There's going to be management. There's going to be maintenance. You know, the best thing for us is to have something that comes in, costs a lot of money. It's high-tech type stuff. And it doesn't employ a lot of people, because people cost money. And infrastructure investment creates property tax revenues, which we need desperately. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of people, a lot more people with jobs, and they're going to be good, well-paying, high-paying jobs. Family wage plus. We think that these statistics are a little old, several years. We're thankful for every job we can find here. But if it's a tourism job, it normally pays about $25,000 a year, seasonal in nature, and most often no benefits. If you're working in the timber industry, logging, working in the mill, trucking, you're probably earning $60,000 with benefits. We consider that a family wage job. I don't know how you do it on that. So we need these kinds of jobs. We have families who struggle, have struggled, been struggling since 1980, when the timber business really went south. And so we have generational poverty. And unless we get some good employment, we'll continue to have that. Very thankful for companies like GMA Garnett that located here several years ago. They came in very quietly. Their product is garnet shards that they use for sandblasting. Whoever in a million years would have thought something like that would end up here in Coos Bay. So we got to kind of, within reason, take what comes our way. We are never, I don't often say never, we're never going to have a Nike here. We're never going to have an Intel here. They just aren't going to come to Coos Bay. Besides that, governments don't decide what businesses go where. They decide. So we have little control over who comes. We can control, we can tell them no, they can't come. But they don't come very often. So we can't be too terribly picky.
So how is the legislature, is the legislature making it easier to build low-income housing and workforce housing in this area? Because if you're saying that there's going to be all these jobs and more people, then we're going to need housing.
You know, I was around here in 1950. Warehouser moved in here, opened up a great big sawmill, started cutting heavily in a forest that had never been harvested on before. GP did the same thing. They bought GP Timber Company, built multiple plywood plants. People from all over flocked here. Housing wasn't a problem. I think if there's demand for housing, it'll be built. And I often wonder, when we subsidize all this housing, are we not taking something away from a developer that would otherwise choose to be here? But part of this market's been taken away from him. So, you know, I don't know, there's good and bad to subsidize housing. We ought to figure out a way that we don't need it, rather than build more of it. And by the way, we have, how many units being built on the old school grounds in North Bend? 110 right now, and that's one phase. And that's largely low-cost housing. We have 30 units that were originally going to be low-cost housing. We fiddled around for 5 years waiting for a low-cost housing outfit that said, I'll do that. And then they couldn't get the money to do it. And so we paid them, the city of Coos Bay paid them to get out of the way. And they're up there digging ditches to make room for 30 homes on the old Englewood school grounds. Or if they're not today, they're going to be pretty soon. We got a 400 unit development going behind Cascade. is housing really a problem? Or is having enough jobs to pay for housing and a reduced interest rate, which we can't control? But, we've always had high interest rates. I remember when it came time to buy my first home, they were 15%. And we got spoiled by lower rates. But at any rate, I really don't worry much about housing. Of course there's no housing, because no one can afford to pay for it. But wait until someone can afford to pay for it. There'll be lots of housing, or enough to take care of them.
Okay, so here's a suggestion for the county. Could the county use more volunteers and interns? They have diverse skills and labor and less cost.
Well, we could check that out. We have labor agreements. We just can't ignore those. But you can't be a deputy without some training. You can't work on our equipment and build roads without some training. You probably can't be much of a human resource officer without knowing law. You can't be an accountant and work in our office without some training. We just don't have a lot of jobs. We sweep our own rooms, so we don't have any room for janitors. Maybe we could have, but I don't think it would make a significant difference. I don't think they would replace the people we have, make it easier for us perhaps. I don't have an answer. Other than that, I don't have an answer.
So Oregon has a sales tax, which is a corporate activity tax. Where does that revenue go?
To the state.
To the state, and we don't get any of it.
Well, I don't know. It probably goes into a big pool of money, and then we get some money out of that. Yeah, okay, I'm sure we do. We just don't know where it comes from. It could be grandma's inheritance or something. I don't know what it could, what pocket it comes out of.
Is there a reason when a tax measure is put on the ballot that is not gradated or graduated for residents with lower property values?
Well, the values themselves would seem to me to make it graduated. If you have a home that has a taxable value of $150,000, you're going to pay considerably less tax than if it's in a home that's valued at $750,000. By the way, talking about homes and taxes, people say, well, to get more people here, and then we'll get so much more money off of our property taxes. Yes, last year our county deficit was around $2 million, and I'm guessing it's going to be the same this year. So let's say that we get everyone that moves here to build a $500,000 home. The taxes the county would get on a $500,000 home would be $540 a year. Just round it down to $500 a year. And we need $2 million. I think it would only take 4,000 homes, 500,000 homes a year to balance our budget. So, and with each home come some people, and they're going to require services. So, not all that falls to the bottom. the bottom line. 4,000 homes, it'll be an awful lot of homes to build.